When you go on the internet, do you worry about your safety? Probably not, right? Most of us don't log on to the internet in a dark alleyway at night. We're in a safe place. We don't worry about security online. We asked the same question to Stefan Leland, an IT security specialist with over 20 years of experience. His answer to the question, are IT systems safe, was...
Almost certainly not. Yeah.
Sorry for the background noise. We had to meet with Stefan in a cafe in downtown Seattle because he didn't want to be associated with his employer. We can't tell you where he works. We interviewed several people for this project. All of them became nervous simply by the prospect of being recorded, and some denied answering the vast majority of our questions. It isn't just individuals who face security threats online. Organizations do as well. Today we will focus specifically on security in organizations, and later, Group 15 will talk about personal security. This leads us to the next question. Why does Stefan think the internet is unsafe? To help answer this, we went to Kirk Bailey, Chief Information Security Officer here at the University of Washington. We spoke with Kirk regarding his role in UW's security on a day-to-day basis.
We've blocked about 50 to 60,000 attacks a day from around the world. The university just bought underwriting insurance for potential loss. The reason we bought that is we have a certain sense of an inevitability of a potential of losing data, and we want to make sure that financially the institution's protected. It's not the outcome we want. We want to protect the data first, of course, but there's a whole new industry building up around the consequences of technology failing and privacy being violated. It's becoming a source of strong concern.
So let's take a step back. What is security? Security is the collection of measures that are used to guard people, objects, or information from danger, damage, loss, and crime. There are three categories of information security, all of which have their strengths and weaknesses. Personal security is a means by which an individual can protect themselves and their property. Societal security is the security measures a society may enact to protect itself from both internal and external attacks. And finally, there is institutional security, our focus today, which is commonly implemented by governments, corporations, and other institutions that may require greater security needs. According to Wilco van Ginkel, there are four fundamental questions that institutions must ask themselves regarding information security. First, they must ask themselves, why should I need protection? The response to this question will vary based on stakes and types of information. Not all information needs to be protected to the same degree. Secondly, an institution must ask, how difficult will it be to protect? Institutions must evaluate different constraints to answer this question. This is where one would weigh the cost of installing a security system against the cost of data being stolen. An interesting example of this is machines that participate in high-frequency trading, where stocks are bought and sold in the order of microseconds. In this case, a security system would add enough fractions of a second to make the machines no longer competitive. As a result, the traders have decided that it costs less to ignore potential risks than it does to add a few microseconds to the trading algorithm.
Don't get focused on the protective controls. Focus on what you're trying to protect. And look at it from that direction of, you put firewalls in. There are ways around those. What's next? Is that your only control? Okay, well then you've just lost the game.
Stefan goes on to say, many people in the security field have a very binary mindset. It's either secure or it's not, and the answer is always no. The person who does security and they're answering no is not going to succeed. More importantly, the entity they're trying to protect isn't going to succeed either. Third, the institution must ask, what and against who should I protect? At this stage, the question is what data needs to remain private and what potential threats would there be to the release of that information. Although it's easy to imagine external threats, such as hackers, it's equally important that institutions consider internal threats, such as a disgruntled employee or even a careless one. Van Ginkel gives the example of training employees to lock their workstations before walking away to the point where it becomes automatic. It's also important to consider every avenue for which information could be stolen. For example, in 2010, Samarth Agrawal stole source code from the trading company SocGen by printing it out. No one had secured the printer because they didn't think of the possibility of someone simply printing out the codebase. For this reason, the University of Washington has a list of do's and don'ts for its staff. The do's include, do think before sharing information on social networks, and do update software regularly. The don'ts include, do not assume vendors are doing what you think they are doing. None of this has to do with complex technology. It has to do with organization. Only after these three questions are answered can an institution ask, how should I protect? Most of the security process is not technical. In fact, Van Ginkel claims that only 20% of a security solution is technical, while the remaining 80% is organizational. All this can sound broad and theoretical, but all this is critical to your safety.
Until you've had your identity stolen, until you've suffered the consequence of trying to patch together a life that's been invaded by an intruder or a set of anonymous attackers that seem to be disrupting your life, the notion of privacy isn't strong.
The need for information security is extremely high. The federal government has recognized this. They've passed regulations regarding the protection of information in institutions. Healthcare providers have to comply with the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA for short. But sometimes, national regulations require more security than is possible. Chris Ewell is the Chief Information Security Officer at Seattle Children's Hospital.
One of the things that you have to do in HIPAA is to make sure you protect the screen itself. And so they want it to be less than a minute. So you lock your screen every minute. That's not conducive to great patient care. So imagine you're talking to the patient and you talk to them for 30 seconds to a minute and your screen locks, and now you have to put those notes in. You got to type back in there to do that.
As Kirk said in the beginning, a breach is inevitable. Stefan Leland told us that the process for dealing with a breach is sometimes more important than the security itself. If a breach happens, organizations must know what systems have been compromised. They must then be able to notify the relevant people without causing panic. Finally, they must change their systems to avoid such a problem in the future. With the advent of the information age, we've seen a mass shift into the digitization of personal information. Online exchanges are becoming a part of our everyday lives. As a result, we need to ensure that the data we supply to companies can be entrusted to be confidential. We're often lulled into a false sense of security when we're online, but it's important for us as consumers to remember that nothing is completely safe. Companies need to be prepared for both direct external and internal attacks, and no matter how much preparation is done, the inherent weakness of simple human fallibility. Institutional security is a growing issue, and one that will only continue to get bigger and more relevant in our lives. Kirk sums this up nicely.
Right now it's what they call a zero unemployment field. There's just not enough professionals in this field to tackle the work. And it's extraordinary.